Yes. Yes. I had my papers confused for a second. Now I'm good.
Do. Both of us. Try. Going. Last time I read this would have been,
Read this disclosure. Copy of what you read.
I think I did last time.
In digital form too. For every time.
I was trying to, look for the,
You can keep that.
thank you. I was looking for the meeting minutes from the last time I read it. Because I have this somewhere. Oh, and-
You know, the
Mike, I'm gonna time the 3 minutes tonight.
Yes.
It's 6 o'clock.
Time the 3 minutes.
Yes.
Yep.
Welcome to the fall's regular meeting, October 18th. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Silent prayer real quick. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Federoff?
Present.
Mr. Bariak?
Here.
Ms. Spletzer?
Present.
Mr. Rufner?
Present.
Ms. Stemper?
Here.
Any changes to tonight's agenda?
Mayor, I would like to be recognized.
You have the floor, Mrs. Fletcher.
I had requested at the last meeting that we would have a motion on this agenda to make the city manager's evaluation a public record, since it was shared in executive session. Do we need to make a motion for that, Mr. Bryan?
No, you don't, Ms. Spletzer. It's already a public record. The mere fact that it was talked about in executive session doesn't mean if it's already a public record, it's public. I mean, I guess an example I would say, if we discussed an ordinance on a contract or something in executive session, we'd be allowed to do so.
Ma'am, this is Mrs. Lemon, this is your first warning.
That would be sorry, Mr. Bryan.
Your first warning, ma'am.
So just the fact that a public record's discussed in an executive session doesn't mean it's not a public record. So the motion's not necessary. It's just what was discussed in the executive session is what needs to say prior.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Special presentations by staff members or invited consultants. And then, I don't have any. I'd also like the clerk right now, before we get going, would you please read the Sunshine Law and the ORC, please?
Yes. Ohio Revised Code, Section 2917.12, disturbing a lawful meeting. A, no person with purpose to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting, procession, or gathering shall do either of the following. 1, do any act which obstructs or interferes with the due conduct of such meeting, procession, or gathering. 2, make any utterance, gesture, or display which outrages the sensibilities of the group. B, whoever violates this section is guilty of disturbing a lawful meeting, a misdemeanor of the 4th degree. The Ohio Open Meetings Act, Chapter 8, Duties of a Public Body, Section A, Openness. Number 3, right to hear but not to be heard or to disrupt. All meetings of any public body are declared to be public meetings open to the public at all times. A court found that members of a public body who whispered and passed documents among themselves constructively closed that portion of their meeting by intentionally preventing the audience from hearing or knowing the business the body discussed. However, the Open Meetings Act does not provide or prohibit attendees the right to be heard at meetings. Note that other laws may apply to limit the restrictions the public body can place on the public's ability to speak during meetings. Further, a disruptive person waives his or her right to attend meetings, and the body may remove that person from the meeting. Ohio Sunshine Laws 2023.
Thank you, sir. Now we're going to go on public comments, agenda items only. Would anybody like to take the floor to speak?
Julie Lemon, 609 Ridge Road. Whose phone's on? Okay. First off, changes to, the agenda changed, and from what I could see, that the minutes from September 11th were not added to the original agenda. It wasn't on the actual agenda. That's the only thing I saw that changed. However, I will say that I think it's actually rather sad that you guys have to redo minutes. Councilman Bariak, as the chair, I'm going to address you and ask you a question. And you can answer it or not answer it, that's okay. But on the September 11th meeting, it is recorded, you said it, that the minutes that had happened prior to Mayor Klein resigning and adjourning the meeting would be dealt with and taken care of it. Your words, not mine. Are you saying it was okay for his words to be omitted? I'm asking a serious question. You've been on council for 8 years. You answer that when it's your time, please. Ordinance 2023-42. Why have we moved over $2 million around? That is a lot of money. We have $2 million extra to spend, but we can't have our police department, we can't put mulch in our parks. But we want to give the city manager a $30,000 raise? Well, it seems to me if you can move around $2 million, you have plenty to do all three. Ordinance 2023-43, for safety reasons. Why are we trying to advance money to a fund that currently has no regenerating revenue? It's not self-sustaining. It's taxpayer dollars. You're taking $30,000 from taxpayer money for the repairs. What repairs? The public was already told when it came to the roof that the insurance was paying for it. If the building's so unsafe, as it's been declared, stay out of it. And when it comes to repairs, has it been bidded out? Where are the bids? Was it advertised? Is the person bonded? Are they registered with the city? And last, the senior kitchen. Now, this was said, Ordinance 2023-40. We were previously told, Mayor Buriak, that there was a special fund set up. And it was sitting inside the general fund. Now there's another fund being set up. Do you understand why that causes the community to speculate? Because it looks fishy, it sounds fishy. And I mean, I'm not making accusations, but it sounds like the books are being cooked. That's what it seems like. Because we have receipts.
Mr. Bariak, time.
We have receipts.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Anybody else would like to address the floor?
Rick Curlin, 1009 Wood Glen. It's so nice that we can talk about the senior kitchen again and again and again and again and again and again and again. If you want to know what's going on in the senior kitchen, come and have a nice meal. It's self-sustaining. It's for the seniors. Why is this a difficult thing? If we're talking about the community center, I had an occasion to stop and drop something off to Julie Smiles, and there was some furniture from the community center in the hallway, drying out. It stunk. The furniture stinks. After years of not doing anything, not repairing it, not doing anything for 3 years, the furniture stinks. And you wonder why we're trying to do something to help the community get back to having a community center? The community money is for the community. The community center is for the community. It's not for Heritage Accord. Thank God we're progressing with some things. As it said in the ruling by Judge Rice that we're following. But that's too hard to check records. It's terrible. Come to the kitchen. See the seniors being happy, enjoying themselves, instead of complaining about something all the time. Tessa, thank you for being the councilwoman in the 3rd Ward. I appreciate all your efforts. Please, people, let's get on with business, make some progress, have a nice Christmas, enjoy ourselves, and maybe enjoy the community center someday with funds that we all pay. Thank you.
Patricia Benitez, 70 West 8th Street, Newton Falls. If anybody wonders who that 85-year-old woman is that Mr. John Baryak referred to in the last meeting, it is me. I must say that I was very disappointed that I could not attend the October 6, 2023 meeting due to the fact that Mr. John Baryak and Mr. Bud Federoff changed the meeting date to a Friday at an early hour for their convenience. Many individuals were either working or had other plans. I have tried to arrange my schedule around the said regular scheduled council meetings. Apparently, the individuals who wanted to change the meeting didn't take that into consideration. I noticed in tonight's agenda we are appropriating $30,000 from the general fund to provide the resources to make necessary repairs to the Village Community Center. What is actually going to accomplish? I would certainly like to know. We have heard from certain individuals about the $5.2 million we are going to receive. What's $30,000 going to do? Of course, we never hear that the $5.2 million is going to be spread between parts of West Virginia and Ohio. I believe that it is quite a misnomer to be stating that we are in the running for a $5.2 million grant. I believe that they should be saying a possible portion of the $5.2 million grant. Even that is not guaranteed. Also on the agenda is the establishment of a Community Services and Activities Fund. What is going to be considered as community services and activities? Who is going to oversee this fund? How much money is going to be in this account? And another open-ended way of spending our money. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to public address on the comments on the agenda? Have a comment? And I'm going to rule as closed. Under the reports, I'm going to start out, Mayor. The only thing I'm going to say is Sunday, we're having a duck pluck a duck, and it starts at 2 o'clock. But if you'd like to get there earlier to buy a duck or whatever, and then we're going to go on and have a beautiful time. And there's a lot of beautiful baskets. There's a lot of good food going to be had, and it's all going for the benches. That's all I have to say. Council members, who wants to start? Mr. Fedorf would be.
Yes, please.
Ward 1, please.
You know, I haven't been a council person for that long. I was appointed. One thing has become very apparent. The people that come to council meeting, 99% of them complain. They say, gee, the city's done nothing, council's done nothing, all we're doing is spending money. People have never had an evaluation, etc. Well, I was on a committee with Councilwoman Spletzer, and yes, we did an evaluation, a job evaluation of the city manager. The one thing that became very apparent, and I've got a small list of accomplishments that have been done since she became city manager. Apparently, the people in the audience are unaware of these because I don't hear anything telling Pam what a great job she's doing, and she is doing a good job. So I've got a list here. You'll have to bear with me. Old people apparently read stuff. I'm not as old as some, but older than others. So I'm going to read this list of accomplishments. Starting out with keeping in mind when she walked in, there was nothing here. She actually had to probably bring her own pencil. Everything had been cleaned out. So when she took office, she found a finance director that could and would dedicate his or her effort to the city when it was desperately needed. We didn't have one. The director was able to find and pinpoint where the funds were being spent and how to correct the spending situation. Is signing off and making sure our investments are secure and not in funds that violate the investment policies of the ORC. We had a problem with that. Then recommendations of the finance director She got that corrected. We found a law director, we found a prosecutor, saved the city well over $100,000 by not having to pay a city manager for almost a year. She worked for nothing. Saved the city well over $180,000 in health care costs the first year by changing carriers. Working to save the city's $10,000 by researching bills that should not be paid. He updated the utility office with a machine to run checks through the bank without the employee having to write out deposit slips and take them to the bank, saving almost $5,000 annually. She updated the utility office by having them do monthly audits on the performance of the new meters. First month's audit caught 3 commercial customers being billed for under our electric services. They were being billed residential. Cut internal office costs. One example is a shredder costing $150 a month. Imagine that, $150 a month to shred paper. We're now paying $38 a month. Coming up with creative ways to cut costs. She implemented a payroll system, saving about $8,000 annually. Implemented an employee time clock. Never had one before. Implemented a time-off calendar so we can keep a more accurate record of these types of requests. Implemented a GPS system that will track the city vehicles. Implemented FMLA documents that the city never had before. That's the family medical leave. Updated the city's inventory list for the property insurance that hadn't been updated for well over 5 years. We didn't even know what we had. Required staff to use emails that are directly related to the city. No more Gmail accounts. Assigned a dedicated email address for public record requests. Updating social media platform to get information out to the public. Set up a social media for the different departments so they can inform the public on issues also. Implemented employee supervisor evaluation forms. Evaluations had not been done on employees for well over 10 years. That was the old who do you know, who you related to. Assessment for each department needs regarding staff and equipment. Staff meetings to encourage workers to bring forward issues that may be experiencing. They've been very helpful, both to the staff and the employees. Encourage and lift the morale of the employees while insisting on efficiency and productivity. Worked with council to dedicate the bell in the courtyard, I don't know if you remember that or not, used to be straight outside here, to the public school system. Worked with the developers to update the courtyard for scope use. Working with the economic development committees to bring Dunkin' Donuts to a reality. Before, how many times you hear people say, oh, that's never gonna happen. She got together the letter of intent, it's actually transferred, and we'll be getting a Dunkin' Donuts. Applying for a second $250,000 grant to clean up the city's owned State Route 5 property. That's the Dunkin' Donut area. Finalize a NOPEC grant for the Commerce Association Spring Peddler. A mosquito grant for the road department for 2 years. Saved the city over $380,000 in health care costs for 2022 with the new plan implementation. Got a $2.9 million forgiveness loan for Scott Street. And I believe that was later changed into a grant, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, John? The Scott Street?
Principal forgiveness loan, but
Okay.
still principal forgiveness.
Forgiveness loan, okay. Applied for a $5 million grant for the parks. That's the one that people say, gee, why are you putting some money in there to take care of it until we get that grant? Applied for a grant for charging stations. You probably saw in the newspaper where the Turnpike got a state grant to put charging stations for the electric vehicles. They're working on grants for the dams and their repair. They're both in bad shape. Working with the supervisors to update ranges for employee retention. It's expensive to hire a new employee and train them. So we're trying to keep the ones we got. We fully staffed the electric department, fully staffed the water department, fully staffed water distribution. Working on fully staffing the road department. Had Christmas for the village, first city Easter egg hunt, senior kitchen, senior pantry, movie night for the kids, town hall meetings to encourage the village participation, civic pride workshops, two tire grant recyclings, Go Green grant, 2 years for senior service day, Go Green grant for community cleanup, creation of electric and water department Facebook pages, cut phone bills cost by verifying lines being used by the finance department, instituted a hierarchy, there we go, for the supervisor redundancy. Before it was, really didn't know who was going to be in charge if the supervisor wasn't there, the department head. They reestablished the crew chief positions and pay scales. Standardized the pay program, reestablished the neighborhood development program, worked with the supervisors to get necessary equipment for their departments, reviewing inventory of vehicles, saving money on insurance costs, worked with the government officials during their investigations. We had several investigations with the auditor and such as that coming through. Setting up a new website protocol, signed a contract for returning the video recordings of council meetings to be able to cable channel and the website. Currently in the process of developing more family-oriented community programs, events at no cost to the village. Working with the community organizations to develop events for the community, brought back voting to the municipal center, hosted the Red Cross blood drive, hosted vaccination clinics, working to expand the military banner program, adding 2 banners every year, working with the same downtown area improvement programs to reinstate tourism, instituted a Department of the Month to improve employee morale, instituted a helping hand for employees who do random acts of kindness throughout the village, gave department flexibility on uniform to cut costs for the village. Veterans Bench Project, Community Bench Project, Family Movie Night, other community activities for the public. Worked with supervisors to get credit hours for the supervisors pending with council NOPEC grant for $12,260. With speakers for downtown. There's speakers going up. There will eventually be music played through these speakers and used for other community events. Free Wi-Fi downtown. It's in development. Reduced cost of videotaping council meetings. We were paying a ridiculous amount before. I mean, it was pretty expensive, $350 a meeting or something like that. We have had 2 town hall meetings for the new garbage contract. Before, you had nothing to do with that. This is going to be your new garbage people. We had 2 town hall meetings. 2 town hall meetings for the police department. This isn't something that was just done out of the blue. We had town hall meetings on that, or she did. Town hall for the Scott Street project. 1 town hall for the small community project. Ongoing project making council chambers handicapped accessible. The Dam Duck Drop fundraiser. I think we're up to, 1,200 ducks? I think is the last count that I'd heard anyways. Got 3 veteran bench project or project breakfast fundraisers, working on a commercial kitchen for senior program. We are now a commercial kitchen. We've got the licensing. Working damage control after Heritage Accord jeopardized the $5 million grant. You would think that for all of Heritage Accord's concern for the city, that they really went out of their way trying to disrupt and prevent Newton Falls from getting a $500 million grant. Even though the grant itself very specifies that they did not qualify for it. They wanted to tag on with Newton Falls Village, and they're not, never were part of Newton Falls. Developed the Department of Historic Sites and Structures to protect the village's history. There's going to be a meeting here tomorrow night, I think at 6 o'clock, so I'm not, be their very first meeting. Working with OHM on the dam project and funding sources. We're trying to find funding to get the dams fixed, and working with OHM on relocation of our water source. That's going to be a real bear. It needs to be moved. And anytime you move our water source, we want to get into a deeper section of the river. We want to go upriver more. Well, when you do that, you have to run all that piping and everything new. This is something that should have been done. Scott Street, they were dumping raw sewage within 150 of our water, 150 feet of our water intake. Well, we're getting that part done. Now we're trying to get the water intake up there. So it'll save us money in the future because we won't be using so many chemicals. We hired a new water plant supervisor, an in-house water plant supervisor, working with the supervisors for education classes for employees as opposed to disciplinary action. In the past, we had disciplinary hearings on employees, and in retrospect, there was really not a whole lot of job descriptions and stuff like that. Someone would say, well, you did wrong, and then there'd be a disciplinary hearing. One of those almost a guilty before you even had a hearing. There's a lot more in the works. This was done about a month ago, and there's quite a few more things that could be added to it. This was only 4 pages. So when you get up there complaining about this isn't done, that isn't done, this is this that has been done. And I defy anybody to take the time that the former administration was here to come up with a list anywhere near this of stuff that they did. Thank you.
I'm going to just say, as far as my, we have the electric has been run out to Dunkin' Donut. It came in a lot lower than what was anticipated, but the nice thing about it is, but the previous administration didn't even want to run it out there. They wanted to let them get what they wanted to get. What we want to do is we want a chance for the village, even if it takes us a few years. We want a chance for the village to make money. And I will say something. It should have been done a long time ago about the electric out there, but now we have people showing real interest in coming out there on Route 5 and 534. Now, I had tonight, I'm not going to rant tonight, I had a dossier, I have it at home, all the facts. All the money we spent, all the people we antagonized, and this, our neighbors Braceville and that, what we spent to get Venture Plastics in here and what we planned on spending more. We only concentrated on one place in the whole community. Annexation, fighting annexation. Doing this, doing that. Well, you know what, folks? Bottom line is, Venture Plastics just bought a big factory down in Salem. But we were gonna buy $3.5 million railroads out there on the certain property out there on Old Warren Road. Everything was geared. We missed the ball on a lot. Now, we're moving forward. I'm not gonna badmouth anybody. But this is the difference in between, we wanna look at all the eggs in the basket instead of just one, concentrate on one specific spot. And the money that we lost with all the fighting and all the annexation cost and all the Well, we didn't even get the bed tax from the motels. We didn't know that well, at least I knew, because I'm the one that presented it, we didn't know there were tanks on the economic development team till 3 days afterwards, that there were tanks, and it cost us, thank God, we got $500,000 to clean that property up, which is now, everything's blossomed, gonna blossom out there. It may not be, I may not be here, but we're looking at the whole area, all the way down in that to try to develop that, which will be a blessing and a boom for Braceville, Newton Falls, the whole thing. So that's where I'm gonna close my remarks with tonight, and now go to Ward 3. Please, ma'am, do you want to be recognized?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
The only thing I will mention tonight is that the dam duck drop is on Sunday at 2 o'clock. However, I did learn today that they are offering pre-sale tickets for the Chinese auction, pre-sale tickets for the luncheon on Friday and Saturday also. So if anyone is interested in participating in the event but can't make it on Sunday, there will be pre-sale tickets available on Friday and Saturday. That's all.
Mr. Rufner, would you like to be recognized? No?
I have nothing.
Mrs. Stumpert, would you like to be recognized?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, please.
Last night was our October Fire Board meeting. We're talking about selling First Street. We're looking into our options of that now that the agreement has been signed between Cato Company and the Fire District. November 17th is their annual turkey raffle and cooler raffle. And then our next meeting will be November 21st at 6 o'clock. And that's all I have.
Thank you. We'll go on to the Finance Director. Sir, do you have anything you would like to report?
Just a couple of things.
Mr. Hosley, will you please speak up to you tonight?
Sure. Just reminding everybody, September's closed. It is reconciled. It was closed timely. And we've had I think just about every month that I've been here since we were able to get the months closed. It took us a while to get to that point because there were a number of months behind when I started. But I think we've been getting every month closed within the first 3 to 5 days of the month, which I think that makes a pretty sound statement for itself. And then on this agenda here before you all, there is a appropriation measure, which we can talk more about it when the time gets there. But there is a lot in there because I am trying to go through and refine everything so that I have a good presentation of the 2023 budget to the 2024 budget, which I have less than a month to get to you. I think it's due around November 15th. So when I look down through there, I'm seeing adjustments in there for $6. And I know I probably spent more time on that than I had to, but I just want to have a good apples to apples comparison. That's why you have all that in front of you today. And then regarding the ordinance number 2023, the advance legislation, I want to explain what's happening here with this, and possibly open the floor for discussion on where you want to go with it too. But we have this community center that's a property that belongs to us, and it's in a state of repair, even to make it safe for contractors. It needs to be repaired even to make it safe for, I believe, contractors to get in there and insurance companies get in there and to evaluate everything properly. I think, just speaking generally about it. And the first piece of legislation that I introduced the last meeting for a transfer of $20,000, that's going into the Parks Fund, where the community center is right now. 16 of that's going to be spent, and we're not getting any of that back. So there would be potentially an extra 4,000 of that 20 for any incidentals that come up, which could be the utilities to get us through the end of the year. This piece of legislation in front of you tonight for $30,000, I'm asking it to be advanced from the general fund to the Parks Fund because we had to advance pay the contractor to begin work on the community center, and we're supposed to be getting that money back. Now, that's $18,000.
May I interrupt, just to clarify? It's insurance dollars for the roof, for $55,000. So we have to advance the monies. The check is coming from the insurance carrier for $55,000 to complete the entire roof. So we had to give the contractor $18,000 so he could get the materials, and that's why you're seeing these dollars. But the check is coming from the insurance carrier to reimburse those funds.
Right. And I prefer, instead of just advance 30, I prefer up to, because I may not need the full 30, I might only need the 18. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. I'm only going to advance what we're going to be reimbursed by from the insurance company regarding this 30. Now, the 20 the other day, it's being transferred, that's called a gift, so you really are giving the money from the general fund to be put towards the community center. But in this piece of legislation, I'm asking for an advance of 30. That's a loan from the general fund to be returned, but we are looking at an additional $50,000 in costs in the long run, even though some of them are being reimbursed. I have to appropriate for that, even though we're getting the money back. So I have to get the money over there to appropriate for it. We have, then we spend the money, then we get the money back, and then the money goes back to the general fund. Just wanted to explain that logic, maybe before we get into the legislation, and I hope that helps some of you out. But I think a more pressing issue that, I don't know if you want to talk about it tonight amongst yourself, is you've got this community center now, and it's in the Parks Fund. One option for this community center would be to potentially create an entirely separate fund for it in a special revenue fund, and segregate its costs, so there's no confusion about what's being spent exactly on a community center versus other parks activities. And I'd like to move forward with creating a new fund in the special revenue fund. That way, if a transfer needs or supplement, a permanent transaction now needs to be made from the general fund, it stays over there in the community center. And there's lots of future decisions. I don't understand the state of the building, all of that right now. I think the only point that I'd like to open the floor for discussion on is maybe get each of your opinion on whether or not you think we should segregate it in its own special revenue fund. That's all. Because ultimately, you all have individual decisions to make in the future regarding how much money is going to be supplemented towards it in the future from the general fund or not. But the only point of this discussion is, do you think it's a good idea to put it in its own fund? And does anybody want to make a remark on that?
All right. I have a question. The advances that you're making, sir, have to be done, but we are going to recoup the money down the road. In other words, simple what you tried to say to everybody. We have to advance the money. We will be reimbursed. Is that what you're saying?
That's the intent of this legislation. In the interest of full disclosure, the way advances work, there are circumstances in other localities where you might find yourself in a situation where the general fund does make an advance to a certain activity, and then some circumstance prevents that fund or that function from generating the resources to return that advance. And in that circumstance, which isn't very often, what happens is that advance becomes a conversion to a transfer. But at this point in time, that's just a theory that I'm sharing with you, but at this point in time, the intent of this legislation is to have, if we end up being reimbursed by the insurance company for the 18, is to have the full amount that we get reimbursed by from the insurance company put back into the general fund. So I'm only intending on advancing what's needed and what's gonna be reimbursed by the insurance company up to 30, and then I'm planning on returning all that back to the general fund.
Okay.
If it can be done this year, so be it. If not, it doesn't have to be done this year. It can be done next year. This gives me the authority to return it.
Anyone else have any questions for the finance officer? I'll go then to the law director, sir. Anything from the law director tonight?
I have no report, Mr. Bariak, unless anyone has any questions.
All right, thank you. We'll go to the city manager. Do you have anything, Mrs. Pritter, you would like to add or talk about tonight?
Yes, I've got just a few things. The speaker system will be installed on October 25th for the downtown area. Part of that was from the NOPEC grant that we received. And I don't know if anybody noticed, but down through the park, there's light poles going down through the sidewalk there. It's not complete yet, but the electric department did put some lighting in there as part of this grant, but we're waiting for the rest of the equipment to come to finish it. It won't be here till spring, so they won't be able to finish that project till spring. But the speakers are going to be installed on the 25th. So then we should have some music playing, hopefully by the end of October, the first part of November. The Wi-Fi project, they are working on the downtown area. That should be completed probably around the same time, probably by the middle of November, I would say. They have some work that they have to finish up there too for the Wi-Fi project, for free Wi-Fi for the downtown area. Last week, the employees on the smart meters did training with Aclara, so they can get into possibly fixing some of the meters that we're having issues with. So they did do their training last week. It went very well. It was almost a 4-hour training that they went through to see what they can do to help get some of these meters back up and running. And we do have some other meetings scheduled with Aclara to see where we're going with this project. Some of the meters, the electric meters, were supposed to be delivered, but at this point, I don't know that they have yet. Only like half of them should be delivered. I'm gonna say, they said by the end of this week, I believe we were supposed to get some. And then the other half, they're still waiting to find out when they're going to appear. But at this point, we were supposed to have them back in June. We didn't get them in June. Then we were supposed to get them in August. We didn't get them then. So now we're supposed to have half of them, or almost half of them, by the end of this week or so. And then the electric department can start installing those. As a couple council people have said, the duck drop is this weekend. We have sold about 1,200 ducks so far, almost 1,200. We are doing pre-sales on Friday and Saturday. Friday from 4 to 7, Saturday from 12 to 3. And then the drop is at 2 o'clock on Sunday, and then there's a lunch here starting at 2:30 on Sunday afterwards. And the basket raffle, and I think the last count they had close to 100 baskets that were going to be raffled off. And then also the tree lighting, the Commerce Association asked the village, or we had heard that there wasn't going to be a tree lighting this year if the Commerce Association couldn't find somebody to take it over or help with it. So just to give everybody a heads up, we are looking at doing a tree lighting. I have asked the school, the art department, the kids, because we're going to call it Winter Wonderland this year. That's the theme. And asked the art department, I purchased some wooden ornaments and rounds, circle rounds and stuff like that, and asked them to paint snowman faces on all of those ornaments. So the art department is excited about doing that. So the tree will be decorated with paintings from the Newton Falls Art Department, school art department, this year. And we have some other things planned that we're looking at for the tree lighting, but at this point, that's what we've gotten to so far. There's going to be a pre-construction meeting for Scott Street on the 27th at 1 o'clock. So if anybody wants to attend, they can. It's just to go over with the contractor what the expectations are and things like that. So it's just a pre-construction meeting to get that project underway. And then, as many of you know, we had went out for bid for the Wyndham Road property. There were actually 2 properties that were on Wyndham Road. They did sell. We did get a higher bidder for the property, and they paid $17,605 for the property. We're finalizing that now, so they will take possession of the property once we have final documents to sign. And then also, we are doing a town hall on the 23rd for the water infrastructure of this community. The infrastructure for this community just in general is in terrible shape. Actually, I'm looking at 2 different projects, one for the electric department and one for the water department. And when I say water department, that includes the water plant, distribution, the dams, the whole project. For that project alone, we're looking at upwards of $10 million for that project. It's going to be, I have instructed OHM that we want to look at every opportunity out there as far as grants, zero interest loans, forgiveness loans, whatever we can look at. We are going to go out for bid for the planning stages, because with such a big project, we're going to need someone to plan this all out, because the dams have to be incorporated with our water source. When we talked earlier about the water, it's going to be a good thing if we can move the water intake upstream of Cale Creek, because we get so much debris coming down from Cale Creek that it contaminates the water. If we can go past it, it's clearer water. It's better water for the residents of this community if we're able to go up that far. They're even looking, going up as far as actually into Lake Milton and taking the intake all the way up to Lake Milton and pulling from the lake if the state will allow it. It's never been done before. There is no intake from that lake, but that's one of the things that we want to look at, is to see if we can possibly take it all the way up to the lake if the state allows it, since it's a state property. So that would all be part of the planning stages. And I know, Mr. Rufner, you're on that committee for the utilities and things like that. So we're probably going to start getting you involved in that, so you understand that project and what's going to be happening there. And also, we're looking at a project for the electric department that's probably about close to $1.3 million. It's 1.2 something dollars for one of our substations. The substation right now has parts on it that are close to 50 years old and have never been replaced. If the other substation goes down, that substation will not run this village. So we have to look at upgrading that substation. And again, we're looking at all the alternatives there to see what we can do and see if there's anything additional out there for the village to cover some of that cost for the electric substation. So we have a number of projects coming up that I think we need to take the time and look at the infrastructure for this community, because it is poor. I mean, the infrastructure is in bad shape. You know, like I said at the last meeting, we have some roads that we're starting to do. We are starting to put a plan together for if not every year, every other year, looking at doing different roads and keeping track of the ones that have been done and the ones that need to be done. So as those projects come up, we're going to keep applying to see what kind of grants are out there, whether they're grants, whether they're forgiveness loans. You know, one of the things I've told OHM is that, you know, we don't have the funds to do all these projects, so we need to find whatever funds are available to this community with no cost to this community. So with that being said, that was the last thing that I had was if people want to find out about the infrastructure, there will be a presentation by OHM on the 23rd. They're going to show us different options. You know, a lot of it, the dam on First Street may have to come down because it's not repairable at this point. But the one right here at the falls, they feel can be repaired, but the one on First Street, we may have to move. And again, it would be better water for this village if we're able to move that dam, because it's just, there's no funding out there to repair it. It would cost more to repair that dam than it would be to just build a new dam. So we're probably not gonna get dollars to repair something that's pretty much not repairable and could have the dollars to just build a new one. So those are the kind of things that we're gonna talk about on the 23rd, because I think it's important for this community, because again, that dam is over 100 years old. There's significance to it. There is, you know, history to it, but I think people have to understand that that is our water source. That line of the river is our water source. So we have to do what we have to do to make sure that we get some clean water and good water for the residents of this community. With that, that's all I have for my report.
Does anyone have any questions for the city manager?
Yeah, I have
Mr.
one.
Fedorf, you're recognized, sir.
Thank
You're
you.
recognized.
Thank you. On the substation that needs replaced, okay, that's the one over on Liberty Street, I think it is?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Understand we may have some money that we've been collecting through the years for that replacement, and it was never done. Am I correct there, if you can explain that?
Correct. In their capital improvement account, that's the project's been on the books since 2006, and it's never been done since then, knowing that it had to be done, and it's just never been done, but it's been carried forward in their capital account to do that project. So there is the $1.2 million sitting there for that project that has been part of our rate studies and everything else over the years, but it's just never been done. So we're going to move forward with that.
So it just sat there, was nothing we could do with it, we couldn't invest it or anything, it's just there.
As part of their capital improvement, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sperry, if I'm wrong, correct me. The previous administration got us into this $4 million debt with these smart meters. I don't have my electric meter yet. Are we gonna, is this what you were saying before, they're gonna try to start getting them out there finally? You know, we've been paying on that for what, 3 years now?
Right.
$370-some thousand, and we don't even have them?
Right. The electric meters, we do not have.
Why don't we go after them legally?
That, do you want to?
Mr.
We
Don't
have
we
to
have
take
any
certain
recourse in that, sir, at all? This is ridiculous.
We have to take certain steps before we can do that, Mr. Bariak, and we're doing that, letting them correct the issues. There were supply chain issues with the electric meters. They're now available. They're in the process of they have been shipped. We just haven't received them yet. We should get half of them this week. And the way it works is that there's money, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Hauser, there's money held in escrow by the bank, and they're not paid unless they do the work or the meters come in, so.
It seems to me like it was a bad contract. I really do. I really think it was another, wasn't thought through enough. It was a very high cost. I know I voted against it. I can remember that because of the high cost. I thought we could have done a lot better, but I don't know. All right, I
Yes,
appreciate
we have had meetings every few weeks for the last couple of months to try to work on all the issues, get things working properly.
All right, anybody else have any questions for the city manager? All right, I rule that closed. Okay, we come up here to approval of the previous minutes, and before we get going here, Mr. Ocone, would you like to make a clarification regarding the minutes on the special meeting, September 11th, 2023, sir?
Yes, thank you. The
Please
special,
speak up, sir.
sure. The special meeting held on September 11th was one that I could not attend. I created the minutes from the recording, the audio recording that was provided to me. In that particular audio, I found difficult and confusing. There was an omission in the draft. That omission was unintentional, and I regret that it was there. I worked to correct that omission, and today's draft should represent the true and accurate document for your consideration.
I have a question, sir. Could this not have been corrected on the floor? I hear there was some kind of law, there's been some kind of law suit filed by Mr. Lynch about their missions or something. He said that
That might be a question best suited for Mr. Bryan.
yeah, excuse me.
Yes, a lawsuit was filed. In my view, it was done very prematurely. Like I said, the individual could have just reached out and expressed his concerns, and I think between Mr. Acomb and me, it would have been corrected on our end, and we would have been happy to take care of it. We've been working with him to correct it, and he seems to be happy with how they read right now. So.
I'd like to go one step further with this. It's been all over the paper and everything that we had an illegal meeting. Matter of fact, part of the clarification on the minutes was that the meeting was adjourned by Mr. Klein, and it was an illegal meeting. Was it an illegal meeting, sir?
Not at all, Mr. Bariak. The mayor does not have the authority to adjourn a council meeting. Again, I wasn't at that meeting, but my understanding was called to order. The mayor gave his opinion that it was an improper meeting and read his letter and explained it, but at that point, the meeting's called to order. The only way it can be adjourned is by a vote of majority of council, after a motion. No such motion was made. I think the mayor completely misinterpreted section 125.01H of the village code. I think he's thinking of the prior meeting was, I guess, aborted and adjourned for a lack of better term. That at that time, a motion was made to adjourn the meeting was over. The motion wasn't to adjourn the meeting at a later date, unspecified date or specific date, and I think the provision he's referring to talks about a meeting that's adjourned to a later date. So once that meeting's adjourned and it's over, the meeting's over, nothing on the agenda was motioned to continue over to a future meeting. So at that point, there's nothing improper about scheduling a special meeting. For whatever purposes council wanted to schedule the special meeting for, the purposes of that meeting were noticed and announced, and council was free to decide what they wanted to do with the special meeting, and obviously the special meeting's restricted to those purposes and those agenda items only, and everything on that agenda was properly handled at that special meeting.
We had two council people here that walked out, said it was an illegal meeting. I know I got 3 opinions that it was a legal meeting. One of them was by a master parliamentarian here and a lawyer. One was by you, Mr. Brad Bryan, and one was by Mr. Dave Breachers. I'd like to know where the council people got their legal opinion at, that it was an illegal meeting. It was, I mean, you know, you can't just start, this is how these rumors and all these unfactual facts get put out there. Well, did Mr. Rufner, did you get an opinion? Sir, could I ask you that?
You can ask me that, yeah.
Did you get an opinion, sir?
No.
Thank you. Did you get one, Mr. Stemper?
No, sir.
Thank you.
And Mr. Barry, I did speak with Mr. Rufner, and he did bring up that, I wasn't, the law director at the time, he wasn't available to talk to me, and, so that was part of the issue on his end, is he really didn't have anyone to.
I'm not trying to, I don't want my fellow councilman to think that I'm after him, because if I was after him, I'd put it on the floor that they weren't excused and they walked out of here. And did themselves, which was illegal. I don't want that to go on. I want to work together with you, Mr. Rufner and Mr. Stemper, but this stuff has got to stop. When we quit making it, you can come to this podium and come here and there and make all kind of accusations. I just want to have some kind of basis of where you got. Thank you. Okay, any more discussion? Well, it has been amended now, right, sir?
The draft that you have for your consideration tonight should be true and accurate.
All right.
And you still need a motion to.
If I could,
You would like to have the floor, sir?
yes, please. I understand there's been another lawsuit filed on this change even?
It was the same lawsuit, it was an additional motion filed on Monday,
On
which
this
actually,
past Monday?
which actually happened after the minutes had been corrected.
Mrs. Klein, will you please? The passing notes and everything, please. All right, please.
All right, so the motion was filed after the minutes actually came out with the actual agenda, not the draft of the agenda that came in over the weekend. So they were accurate. A different technical point was discussed on the call with the court on Tuesday afternoon, and we agreed to another slight modification, and that was why the additional draft came out at that time. So.
So do we have to wait for the court to make an additional ruling on this and issue
not.
another journal entry, or is this?
This is it. This
This is it.
complies
We're-
with the
Yes.
Okay.
agreed order of the court,
Okay.
the way they read now.
All right, would anybody like to make a motion to accept the minutes?
Don't make that motion.
I will second.
Any more discussion?
Of those minutes in the form in which they're now pending, been distributed to the members and to the public.
Would you ask the law director that, sir?
Well, have the minutes on which the council is now considering and proposing to vote, have they been distributed?
Yes, they were distributed to all of council and the public yesterday, latest version.
I'm sorry, I should have made that. I thought it was made clear by Mr. Brett. All right, if there's no more discussion, could we vote on it, please?
Ms. Stemper?
Yes.
Mr. Federoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Rufner? No.
Motion passes. All right, we're going to go public hearings, ordinance 2023-40. Would you please read the
Ordinance
ordinance by title, sir?
Ordinance 2023-40, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Finance to establish a Community Services and Activities Fund as a special revenue and expenditure fund which are within the village's financial accounts and funds.
I make a motion that we, for ordinance 2023-40.
I'll second.
Wait,
This is a public
Wait,
hearing.
this is a public, this
This
is
is
a
a
public.
public hearing.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's just a public hearing, I'm sorry.
All right,
It's public hearings now, we're not down that far. Go ahead. Would anybody like to speak on this, please?
Adam Zimmerman, 515 LeMay Avenue. This is a pretty dangerous ordinance. There's lots of little stuff in here that need to come to light. Section 3 states that upon approval of the Community Service and Activities Fund by the Auditor of State, the Director of Finance shall reclassify 2023 senior kitchen receipts and expenditures and/or other community or senior service or event donations or program fees to the Community Service and Activities Fund. How do you keep them separate? We're raising how much money in this duck drop? How do you keep it separate from what's being raised from the senior kitchen? What's being raised for benches? Is everything going to be mingled together? Section 4, council authorizes retroactive to January 1st, 2023 deposit and/or expenditure of any senior kitchen and/or community or senior services or event donations. There's no receipts for anything. They were all cash donations. How do we know what was donated and what wasn't? They refused to give out receipts for the senior lunch. So how do we know what was taken in? Everything's all cash. In section 5, that the city manager shall be the village officer responsible for all programs, services, and events funded by the Community Service and Activities Fund. Why do you guys keep giving your rights away? Why do you want to give everything to the city manager? Council should be overseeing the fees and anything associated with events held here in City Hall. That money goes into this fund, not the city manager, council. Council voted to keep everyone out of here. Now they're letting the city manager decide who can come in. You can't do that without overturning that ordinance that council said no one else can use City Hall. So without overturning that ordinance, how can we have anything in here? And just someone please get our parliamentarian a cup of coffee. He keeps falling asleep up there. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the council on ordinance 2023-40? I'm gonna rule that closed then. Okay. Unfinished business. We're gonna go on then. Ordinance 2023-40, will the clerk read the ordinance by title?
Ordinance 2023-40, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of Finance to establish a Community Services and Activities Fund as a special revenue and expenditure fund within the village's financial accounts and funds.
Do I have a motion to put that on the floor?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion? You recognize, sir.
Actually, as I said at the last meeting, this is ideally basically what Sean was referring to in the beginning of separating the accounts out for tracking purposes. Right now, everything is tracked in the general fund or deposited in, taken out of. You don't know what's going where, you don't know who has what when. By segregating this out to a separate fund or line of accounting, as I'm used to calling it, it allows better accountability over these items for the different programs. And again, there are different programs, as Adam stated, going into this, but they're easily tracked within that fund, not lost in the general fund somewhere possibly. So this narrows down and keeps all that like money, or as I refer to it where I work, cut the different color money in the same pot, coming in, going out, so it doesn't bleed into any other fund or any other account. For tracking purposes and accountability, it does make it a lot easier if I said that correctly.
Would the finance director like to be recognized?
Yes, yes.
Well, go ahead, sir, but speak up.
Yeah, I'd like to make a remark on this. It's in the charter that the city manager is supposed to follow all ordinances. So the ordinance restricting this room from being used for any other function, she would have to follow. So there wouldn't be a conflict there. It's in the charter. She has to follow that ordinance. And then regarding how do you keep track of some of the different activities. I can create a separate cost center within any fund to keep track of any specific activity. So if she wanted a bench account for revenues and you know, donated bench revenues, and she wanted an expense account for the benches, we can keep track of them separate from any other function that she wants to do.
John, a better way of putting it, it would be a different line item within this fund, right?
Right. You can create different line items for different functions, and the intent is by donation unless council wants to subsidize something by their own choice. So all of these events, some of them might potentially cost more. You know, at the end of the day, let's say she raises $2,900 for a bench she wants to put somewhere, but the bench is $3,000. Well, she could pay that $3,000 even though she didn't collect the full $2,900. It's coming out of donated funds, you know, and the whole purpose of that fund is to have a location to keep track of community activities where residents want to make donations to go towards community improvement projects or those types of things. So I hope that answers your question.
And the idea, I think, is it's supposed to be self-sustaining from the donations, or if there's a program fee for that specific fee, and not be funded by tax dollars and other village funds.
And if she can't manage the type of community projects that's intended because she's out of cash, then she can't do them. Period. That's what I like about it.
Is there any other discussion? Would anybody like the floor?
I've got a comment on this.
Have the floor, Mr. Federoff.
Thank you. A lot of this, it seems like some people in the audience think that the council micromanages every dollar, every donor. Do we gonna pay the paper boy this week? We gotta have a vote of council. We have professionals. We have a city manager who's capable of doing just that. We have a law director to make sure that we don't overstep someplace. We have a very capable finance director. And here they're creating a separate fund that will be overseen by these people. Council oversees, but we don't micromanage. There's a difference. We have employees. It'd be like owning a company or the board of directors sweeping the parking lot. Well, hell, you contract that out, and that's what we've done. I don't know whether or not Newton Falls is that different. I don't believe so. When you hire someone to do the job, you have faith in them. They can do the job. If something comes up where they can't, then you take action. But you don't micromanage every dime and nickel that goes through the city, especially this is not taxpayer money. But that's all I had.
Anybody else? Mr. Rufner, do you want the floor? I thought I saw you raise your hand. You don't want the floor, sir?
No, sir.
Maybe I saw your hand. I'd like to have the floor for 1 minute. I don't know if anybody's ever been caught stealing a couple bucks off the old people. It's all donated money. This kind of accusations is very detrimental to the community. Very detrimental. I'm sorry, I don't like it. I'm there just about 2 to 3 times a week. There's been an accounting for the money, and I like the separate fund, sir, what you're talking. That's all I have to say. I'll call for the roll then, please.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Rufner?
Yes.
Ms. Stimpert?
Yes.
Mr. Federoff?
Yes.
All right, we're gonna go to new business now. New business. Sponsored by Councilman Rufner. Will the clerk please read the motion?
A motion to appoint Mr. Jeff Derry to the Planning and Zoning Commission for the term that expires on December 31st, 2025.
So moved?
Second.
Any discussion on the floor, sir?
No.
Well, I haven't had a chance to meet Mr. Derry, but I'd like to talk to him. There's no discussion. Now have the roll call.
Mr. Rufner?
Yes.
Ms. Stimpert?
Yes.
Mr. Federoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
I'd like to go on then. Motion passes. I'd like to go on then to resolution 33-2023. Will the clerk please read the resolution?
Resolution 33-2023, a resolution authorizing the Ohio Department of Transportation to perform crack sealing work on a portion of State Route 534 in the village of Newton Falls.
Do I have a motion to accept that, accept the resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Mrs. Pretty, could I ask you to elaborate on this for a few seconds? I know I sponsored it, but I'd like, would you like
can-
to say a couple words about it?
Whenever ODOT does any work on a state highway in the village, they require consent legislation from the village to do it. So this is their project, they're paying 100% of it.
Right.
We really have nothing to do with it, but in order for them to do it, we have to say it's okay for them to do it.
We just need council's approval for it.
Was this moved up a year?
No, this is.
Oh, this is the one that was
their
moved, okay.
project, right.
All right. Is there any other discussion? Would anybody like the floor? I'll call for the roll, please.
Ms. Spletzer?
Yes.
Mr. Rufner?
Yes.
Ms. Stimpert?
Yes.
Mr. Federoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes. All right, I'm going to go to ordinance 2023-42. Would the clerk please read the ordinance, please?
Ordinance 2023-42, an ordinance authorizing certain amendments to the appropriations for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2023, and authorizing the finance director to amend and file a certificate of resources with the county auditor.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, I would like to begin, please.
You have the floor, Mr. Spletzer.
What I'm hoping that my fellow colleagues are understanding, and especially with the conversations we've had tonight about a special revenue fund, not everything is handled in the general fund. And as Mr. Housley stated at the beginning of the meeting, these appropriations that he has put together for this meeting is getting him closer to developing the budget in less than a month for 2024. So, what he is doing is tidying up everything as close as he can possibly get it, so that when he brings us something next month and wants us to approve a 2024 budget, we can look at what was spent in 2023, and we can say, all right, this is what we spent in 2023, and this is what you're budgeting for 2024. So a lot of this is in anticipation of preparing next year's budget. And what he has also done is, I know it's only the middle of October, but he's had to estimate what it's gonna take for some of these funds to finish out the next 2.5 months of this year. Now, I will point out to my colleagues that the general fund itself, there was an increase in the general fund of $54,812.15. Those are any accounts that are in the 100. Now, anything that has a 2 in front of it, those are called special revenue funds. So the 200 accounts are the special revenue funds, and those are the ones that he specifically said tonight we may need in the future to create one for just the community center. So I look for that 204 account, which is the current park and recreation account, to eventually get some type of a 2-something number for just specifically the community center. Now, I will point out in the 200s, there is the income tax account, which is the 221. And if you'll notice over on the right-hand side of that account, he is increasing that appropriation by $239,800. And that is due to the amount of income taxes that have gone up and have been received this year. So that is a good thing. When you see big numbers, it's not always something that you need to get alarmed or concerned about. When you see $239,800 increase in income tax, that's a good thing. Anything that begins with a 5 is called an enterprise fund. So the water operating account is the 501, sewer operating is the 502, and electric operating is the 503. Anything that begins with the 5 as its account number is an enterprise fund. And then the only other one that he is making an adjustment to is in the 600 group, which is the employee benefits. He is adding an additional $101,000 for the employee benefits. And that's, again, he is making certain that we've got enough money to make it to the end of the year, and then we also have neat numbers that we can work with when comparing, for next year's budget. And Mr. Housley, would you like to add anything? I did leave off, I'm sorry, I didn't leave off something. In the 502, the sewer operating account, that one has the, an increase of $1,332,972,092. That is because there is $1.2 million in there for the Scott Street Sewer Project. Now, as Mr. Housley explained earlier, what we're dealing with the community center in terms of, he has to appropriate for it. Even though it's going to be, it's a zero, it's a grant, but it's a forgiveness loan.
Scott Street.
Yes, Scott Street.
Yes, I'd like to talk, once you're done, and
I am done. That was the one I just saw in my notes I'd missed. So yes, anything else you'd like to add?
may I address?
You can have the floor, sir, Mr. Housley. Go ahead, sir.
I just want to
Please speak up.
explain some of the mechanics, like, for example, behind some construction projects. Scott Street's around $3.5 million, and obviously, it's a 10-month project by plan, and there's only a few months left in the end of the year. So, I put $1.2 million in for appropriations. I don't expect that they're gonna be that far along with the project by the end of the year. It's probably more than what they're gonna need, and herein lies the budget and how they just work in general. We also have available resources, so that will be made available to us as we pay the vendor. So as we have costs going out, we will have reimbursements coming in. The end of the year, I may not need it all, and I may be back again by the end of the year if they make a lot more progress than I'm anticipating. It's difficult for me to know how far along I think they're gonna be by the end of the year. And that's just one example of how this works. And within the next 3 weeks, I may not have a single expense or a single revenue item in there yet, but I'm gonna have to have a budget prepared in that sewer fund for the for the Scott Street project to continue. Well, I'll probably begin, my plans are to begin 2024, just for example, just to explain the mechanics. If I've still got $1.2 million on the books through the end of this year, I'm not gonna budget more than what the project's gonna cost. I'll take the difference, I'll start 2024. But what happens is, at the end of 2023, those appropriations that didn't get spent, they go away. And that money becomes available again in 2024. So at some point in time in 2024, you'll see me increasing the sewer revenue appropriations to make up for that difference. And that's kind of what causes a lot of these different fluctuations. So that's all I have to say.
Mr. Housley, what I would say is that I would hope we wouldn't have to go through, but every year I've been here, we've always had some type of reappropriation. I hope that, I hope it goes the way, you're thinking, sir. You never know. Any other discussion? Would anybody else like the floor? We'll have a roll call, please. Mr. O'Comb, would you please, I know your name.
Mr. Federoff.
Yes.
Mr. Bariak.
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer.
Yes.
Mr. Rufner.
Yes.
Ms. Stempert.
No.
All right, we're gonna go on to ordinance 2023-43. Will the clerk please read the ordinance by title?
Ordinance 2023-43, an ordinance advancing up to $30,000 from the General Fund 100 to the Parks and Recreation Fund 204 to provide the resources for necessary repairs to the Village Community Center.
Do I have a motion to accept that ordinance 2023?
So moved.
Second.
May I address as soon as possible before?
Well, Mr. Housley, if it'll save us some confusion, would you like to take the floor now, sir? I'll recognize you.
I just want to introduce an option for y'all to think about before you consider approving this, that's all. That just being, if you'd like the notion of having its own fund, make the suggestion to create its own fund, and then give it, let me give this more consideration. I might rewrite it in a different way. If you want to leave it where it is, vote on it.
Well, then, I'll make a motion to amend ordinance 2023-43. Is that what you would say, sir?
Well, no,
Go ahead.
like, for example, if you look at the appropriation measure,
Excuse me, I'm going to withdraw that motion until
yes,
you
as
talk.
Tessa stated in the appropriation measure, you currently have in Fund 204, you have Parks and Recreation, and then you have a community center within that same fund. If it's of the general consensus of council that they think it might be a better idea to create a special revenue fund for this 204, I would have another piece of legislation in front of you for the next meeting, and I would change this legislation here regarding the advance.
May I address? Mr. Housley, the fund that we just created for the community services and activities is Fund 213. Would this one fall in line being next, be 214?
Well, I'd look at the statement of cash position and see where an open number might be. It might be right under it, or it might be right past it.
Okay.
Be around it, yes.
I would like to have the speak to the law director weigh in on this, sir. What is your opinion, sir?
I think it can be done either way. It's just a matter of preference. I would defer to the finance director as to what he's comfortable with, and then he's asking council what you guys want to do, so.
Well, then we're on the floor to
The one thing I would caution is, once you set up a special revenue fund, it's very difficult to get the money out of that fund to use for other purposes. If you agree with that?
If it's coming from the general fund,
Right.
it can be returned to the general fund, if it's done by advance. If it's
Right,
transferred,
right.
there's no
This-
going
this is
backwards.
right,
There's
right.
no going backwards,
Well,
so.
if there's not a severe rush on this, is there, Mrs. Pretty? You recognized?
I guess my question would be to you is if they complete the roof and we have to finish paying him before the insurance check comes in, what do we do?
Right now, the money's in the fund to pay him because of the transfer that's there, right? If, right now, it has, you're okay, right now, you're right. It should stay there, because that check's already been issued. There's no
Right.
going backwards from that.
Right, the check's been issued.
Yes.
And if he finishes the roof and before the insurance check comes,
Yeah.
how are we going to pay him the balance?
Okay, so in this circumstance, there's no going backwards from this. So the only question kind of remains though is for the future, do you want it to have its own fund? And that doesn't have to be made right now, so.
Well, then, if it can go either way, I would make a motion to table this until the next meeting, or until we can call a special meeting or whatever.
Well, you're
Is
gonna
that
have
what
two
you're
reads
saying,
on it.
Mr.
No,
Hausman?
you're gonna
You'd
have
like
two
to-
reads on it, just give it the full two reads, but the, I'm not gonna be able to prevent transferring the money in there now because the check's already been paid for out of there. I mean, I could be directed to reclassify the payment to the special revenue fund.
So are you asking them to approve this as is and then do a separate ordinance for the next meeting? Is that what you're asking them to do?
Here's what I would suggest, because I haven't actually facilitated the transfer in actuality yet. So if you want a separate fund, I can reclassify the expense properly. You can direct me in legislation to do that. If you want to leave it here for now, so we can move forward with this now. If you want to leave things the way they are for now, just you decide, you can approve this legislation and everything will work out fine. But if you want to begin to account for this community center in its own fund, and it's not too early to make that decision, maybe you need time to think about it. If you let me know, I can bring legislation before you at the next meeting, and I can reclassify that charge under your direction,
I understand now.
okay?
All right, so.
The decision is, do you want a separate fund for this community
Well,
center or
all right,
not?
so the motion is on the floor. I make a motion, the motion was made, sir, Mike, was the motion made yet?
Yes,
We got
motion
into
was
long
made
dis-
by Ms. Spletzer, seconded by Mr. Federer.
All right, we're gonna go ahead with this motion discussion.
Hey, as a person that seconded, I can understand the turmoil. If we transfer the money into the Parks and Rec, like you said, it's kind of hard to get the money out of there. It would then become part of Parks and Rec.
The transfer.
If we create a new program, if you would, and put the money in there, if it's not spent, it just simply goes back to the general fund.
If
With
you
Parks
advan-
and Rec, that would have a problem of.
If you advance it, you know, I mean, yeah.
That's one thing to keep in mind. This is an advance, not a transfer. So
Right.
it's being advanced with the condition that it be paid back within a year to the general fund.
So this would be an advance into that fund, to pay for that contractor to finish the roof. The insurance check's gonna come in, and then the advance would be paid back.
Okay.
All right, okay, I want the public to understand, I want to make sure, we're going to vote on the motion is right on the paper now. Okay, anybody have any discussion? Mr. Rufner, Mrs. Stemper, would you like the floor? You haven't had it first. Anybody? Well, look, did you like to have the floor, Mrs. Stemper, again? I mean, Mrs. Spletcher? Okay. All right, would you please call for the roll, sir?
Ms. Stemper,
No.
Mr. Federoff,
Yes.
Mr. Bariak,
Yes.
Ms. Spletzer,
Yes.
Mr. Rufner.
No.
Motion passes. Okay, public comments tonight. 3 minutes.
Jamie Klein, 312 Ridge Road, Ward 1. In my hand, I got a letter from Sean Housley. Now, my question is, can somebody please get this man a map to where Newton Falls City ends and the townships start? And also, a list of who moved out and when, because in this letter, it's not addressed to me, but it's addressed to my son, and I'm keeping it. He moved out of the town, or out of the city, into Braceville Township in December of 2020, and he gets a letter threatening to file charges against him because of 2021 taxes. He doesn't live in Newton Falls City, and he sure don't want to pay you guys a dime out of his pocket. Second thing, I watch the council meetings at home, and I'm getting really tired of hearing, you people don't do anything for the community. We do. Everything don't need an elbow breaker, okay? You know, there's a lot of people that want to, oh, we did this. No. But I will say, since you brought it up last meeting, there was a handful of us that went out and cleaned up garbage out of Newton Falls. There was a councilman with us, a former councilman, and a councilman-elect, or we all were out there, and we all can learn something. Our youngest little fella was 6 years old, and you know what else? He didn't live in Newton Falls, but he woke up that morning because I didn't feel like going out. He says, no, we're gonna go out, because you know why? It helps the earth. Everybody can learn something from that. And he picked up a whole garbage full of garbage, or a garbage bag full of garbage. So before you start saying, oh, these people want to come up here and run their mouth, but they don't want to do nothing for the community, just because we don't blast it, don't mean we're not doing it. Because there are people every day that walk past my house. If they see a piece of garbage, they're picking it up and they're going to hold it until they get to a garbage can. And you can sit up there and laugh. But I also watched your rant last week. And let me say this. You want to talk about us being out here, being disrespectful, coming up here and saying disrespectful stuff to you. But you, for the last 2 years, have been nothing but badgering to people of not only your ward, but the constituents of other wards. You've had people look people up. You have brought people's past 20 plus years past in their faces. But you don't want to look at what you are doing, or she has done, or he has done, or she has done. Before you said one time, those in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Well, Mr. Bariak, you shouldn't throw a stone neither. I think Mayor is getting to your head, because just because somebody passes a piece of paper or looks at somebody doesn't mean you can throw them out of a meeting. It doesn't. And with that, my last comment is, remember, Miss Fletcher made precedence when she sued Mr. Waddell for her seat immediately after her election, because he was not elected, he was appointed. She could sit immediately. So remember that when November comes and it's time for you to get out of that mayor seat and you to get out of Ward 1, and if you're recalled, for you to step down. As soon as those votes are counted and certified, y'all need to go.
Dang, girl. How you follow that? Julie Lemon, 609 Ridge Road. I'm gonna talk quick because I gotta go get my kid. For the parliamentarian parrot, there is no motion or ordinance. You are here talking to our councilman, to all 5 of them, and you're telling him what to do. Just so you know, I filed a complaint with the National Parliamentarian Association. I'm attaching all the minutes, including this picture I got tonight of you sleeping during the meeting. Because You don't deserve our taxpayer dollars.
Objection.
Just saying.
It's not true.
Yeah, you can't talk. Further second that, $5 million was brought up multiple times. My councilman, Mr. Federoff, you brought up $5 million. What knowledge do you have about that $5 million? So the city's getting that grant. PM got that money for us. Really? How about you, Mr. Baryak? You brought it up too. Because I guarantee you what's attached to the court document between Heritage Accord and the city, it says it's a reimbursement grant. This city don't have $5 million to pay for the community center. We do not have $1 million to have our police department. It's a reimbursement grant. 2023, C as in Charlie, V as in Victor, 01097. Please, people, look it up. It's the last thing on there, October 17th. Click on the image. You'll see I'm not lying. She's been lying to this entire community, and either you guys have allowed it
Please
or
quit
you're in
yelling,
on
ma'am.
it.
Excuse me, you can get your point across.
I can get my point across just fine. I
Please.
have every right to stand here and be
I can't hear
angry.
you with your yelling.
Because you have lied to this community. Shame on you. You can laugh, ha-ha, I can do it too. You have lied to this community. Shame on you. This has been in the works since last November. To legally obtain and violate a valid lease held by a 5013C nonprofit. That's been your plan since last November. I'm good and mad. I am ticked. I am beyond livid right now because it's so disturbing that you guys have to have a pat on the back to boost your ego, that you will stand here and sit there and lie to the people of this community. I have nothing to hide. And what I just said was fact. It was added yesterday. And furthermore, because of your rambling and her everything she did, all she's done is lie to this community, and all you've done is prop her up on a pedestal. You guys want to give her a $30,000 raise when she's lying to the community, and it's not slander because it's a fact. Sign the petition. Stop her raise.
Time, please.
I have a gavel at home. You want me to bring
Time,
it?
please. Thank you. Anybody else would like to address the floor, please?
Who's the one that accused, I don't know whether they've been falsifying records at the last meeting. I heard it.
May I speak
Go
now?
ahead, sir.
Adam Zimmerman, 515 LeMay Avenue. I'm going to touch on quite a few things here. First of all, our city manager said they had to make an $18,000 down payment on an insurance claim. When do you make down payments on insurance claims? I've heard of co-pays, but I never have once heard of a down payment on an insurance claim to pay for supplies that insurance is paying for. The way my insurance works is that my insurance pays the company doing the work. My insurance does not pay me to have the work done, then pay somebody else.
Excuse me, sir. There's someone disrupting you. Keep his time. Keep his time, sir. Go ahead, start again. Go ahead, sir.
I've heard of co-pays, but never down payments on insurance. And my insurance pays the person doing the work, not me. Maybe business insurance works differently, but we heard with Uptown with B Squared being closed that they had to be shut down until insurance approved their claim and was paying for the work to be done. They didn't do the work first. So that leads me to believe that this insurance is going to be acting the same way, that this insurance would pay the company doing the work, not the city. So the city is going to be getting $55,000 supposedly from insurance, paying $18,000 down. So is the work less than $55,000? Does $55,000 include the $18,000 that we are paying? There's all kinds of questions here. Go back to ward reports. Ward reports are supposed to be for what you have done. You're not supposed to read a list of accomplishments that someone handed you to read. We don't want to hear that. We want to hear what you did not what you're saying someone else did. We want to hear what you did, sir, especially for our ward, which we don't hear. Part of that ward report, you said there's GPS units in vehicles. Now, what good is it if the records don't exist? I made a request over a year ago for a specific GPS records of a certain vehicle. The reply that I got is no records exist. So either there are no GPS units in the cars, or they are collecting records that are being looked at here by the city, and those of us are being lied to when we ask for those requests. Touching on last meeting where he said you stay here until January, again, that's just blatant lie, Mr. Federoff. I don't know why you would tell that to us out here. There's two precedents that Ms. Spletzer set that precedent when she sued for that seat, and our past law director, Mr. Schroeder, set that precedent with me as an appointed council person when he said I was done as soon as those votes were certified. So that's two precedents right there that says you are done as soon as those votes are certified, and nobody up here can say different. So we expect a nice orderly transfer to happen mid-November, and a new council person sitting in that seat December 1st for the first meeting. Everyone keeps saying that they want these programs to not be coming from taxpayer money. With the senior kitchen, whatever else, that's why we're setting up all these different funds. But once this money is collected and put into a city account, a revenue account, it becomes taxpayer money. It doesn't matter how it got there. An auditor will not care whether it's a donation, taxes, sales, whatever. Once that money ends up in a city fund, it is a tax, becomes taxpayer money. And it will come out that way.
Thank you very much, sir. Anybody else?
Richard Zemesnik, 242 Oak Knoll. I want to bring a problem that I have to council. A couple of weeks ago, I observed a kid, probably about 10 years old, in a go-kart. He was going about 40 miles an hour down Newton Drive. First of all, he's not allowed to do that. He's not allowed to be in a go-kart on Newton Drive. And it's dangerous for kids and adults and other vehicles for him to do that. I left the East River Gardens area, tried to find a deputy in town. I couldn't find one, so I went to the community center park. I parked on Center Street. Center Street, I observed two kids on top of the dugout on the roof. I don't know what they were doing, but they were just sitting up there. I called the deputy, non-emergency number. They came in about 10 or 15 minutes. I told them where they went. They were still in the park. I was advised that they can only enforce county or state law, not local ordinances. I think that's a deficiency in our taxpayers' money, you know, to go to the sheriff's department to do that. I would hope that you would consider this budget year to allocate, at least to bring back the police department locally, at least part-time, until funds build up enough, you know, to add on to it. Thank you.
Patricia Benitez, 70 West 8th Street. I find it rather interesting that council wants to pay our city manager $90,000 plus 5 weeks vacation. We have a population of 4,543 and no police. I checked the records for Ashtabula, Ohio, with a population of $17,975, and they pay their city manager $90,341. Before you get too excited, they have a police department with 35 full-time officers, 4 lieutenants, and a chief. And Ashtabula cost per person, okay, $90,341 for the city manager, 17,975 population, and it costs each person $5.03. Newton Falls, $90,000, $4,543, and each citizen pays $19.81. And we don't have a police department. I'm very upset with that. And then somebody said about broadcasting, we could have had a person broadcasting for free. No money spent. And council voted no. So where's that saving money? Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the floor? All right, I'd like to start with council. Mr. Federoff.
Well, we've heard a lot of numbers tonight, most recently with comparing us to Ashtabula City, halfway familiar with up there. I know they have a police department. I also know they don't have a water, sewer, or electric department. Comment was made, we don't have a police department. We do have a police department. We have the highest law in the county next to the coroner, which is the sheriff department. I heard as to where they can't do anything about township, or county can't do anything about someone running a moped or a go-kart on a city street. It's still a public highway, and yes, the sheriff does have authority over that. At one time, I was a sheriff, a deputy sheriff, let me clear that. It seems like every time you turn around, they say we don't have a police department. Well, there's a reason we don't have a police department. We don't have the money for a police department, and the public, that everyone up here jumps up and down and says, oh, we had the money. No, you didn't. You've got other expenses too. I would like to have a new car. My expenses, I can't afford one. Now, once my budget would allow me to get that, I'll get it, but I can't run out and buy a new car now because the money just flat isn't there. Just because it's in the general fund does not mean that you have no other obligations. I don't know, you can't explain common sense to some people, and I'm gonna quit trying. Thank you.
Mrs. Fletcher, do you have anything?
Yes, I will just clarify a couple things. When it comes to the individuals that have ran for office, that were fulfilling the unexpired term of someone else. When I ran for the first time, I was running for the unexpired term of Mark Stimpert. Lyle Waddell happened to have been appointed to that unexpired term seat. I believe that Mr. Rufner is now sitting in the unexpired term seat of Sandra Braymeyer.
No. Mr. Granchi.
Granchi was elected, or Granchi was appointed to Braymeyer's seat?
Granchi in there.
Anyways.
So, you know, the difference between being elected and being appointed to an unexpired term are different things. I just hope that clarifies.
All right, hey, no talking, please. Please, sir. Thank you. Mr. Rufner, would you like the floor?
Yes, just for a moment. Again, I'd like to thank Mr. Derry for stepping up and volunteering for planning and zoning. Hopefully for the first time in the 10 months, 11 months that I've been sitting here, we can actually have a meeting. So good news there, good movement there. Also, I just want to reiterate to everybody, the commissions are open, the positions are there, the committees are there. We need the community to get involved. And when I say that, I'm referring to these committees, these commissions, these boards. It may not seem like much, oh, it's a 2-hour meeting once a month, no big deal, whatever, but you can actually make positive change and difference within a community on these boards. That's why they're there. They're meant as steering and guiding / advisory to bring information and things to, for example, planning and zoning, me to bring to the table here. if we don't have those boards, we don't have those commissions filled, there's nobody bringing information. There's nobody putting forth the effort. We need that just as much as you need the people up here to support you. So, again, I put it out there. If you have an opportunity, if you have the time, I mean, you know, it's well worth it in the end. That's all.
Mr. Stemper, would you like the floor, please?
Yes, please. I would like to just repeat that the turkey raffle is November 17th at 7 o'clock at Station 1. And also a huge thank you to Mr. Derry for stepping up and joining planning and zoning so we can have those meetings and move forward with hopefully getting some things done. That's all.
Is that everybody? All right, I'd like to finish up real quick tonight. We had a fellow that wanted to step up to do it for nothing, the broadcasting instead of $100, but he wanted to advertise. He wanted to have advertising. Well, I don't feel advertising should be brought in. We're not running advertising here. That's how they were going to pay for it. Now, there's no advertising on this. He gets $100. The fellow before wanted anywhere. Well, I got four numbers: 350, 400, 500, 600. It is. Now, there's a ballot coming up on the ballot, a 0.25% income tax to help bring back our police department or put on additional sheriff. We could use the help. So we'll see which way the voters want to help out, either to help bring back their own police department, put a couple hundred and some $1,000s in the budget, or help the sheriff's department. Now, we also have a 0.25% income tax on. We're very limited in the street department, and we're very limited in our roads, to work on our roads. We need seed money to get these grants, because not all grants are 100%. We do need a few dollars. We've run into that. Look, I'm coming out here before election, and I'm going to lay it out, because I'm going down the road. I've had 8 years. I hoped I could do something right for this community. What it is, it's about control of this community. And if the people want to recall on somebody's expertise, the master's degree, that does a heck of a job on finance, they want to recall her. If they want to put whoever they want to put in, look, it's about control of the town. Really, it's not about doing right and wrong. I applaud people that want to step up. And there are people that step up time after time after time after time after time and never want their names mentioned. There's people that donate a lot of money, never want their names mentioned. But there's also some people here that they come in here and they just, you know, I don't want to go back at them because I could throw a lot of stones too. Ooh, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, I can. You had your turn to talk, ma'am. It's my turn, okay? I'm not going to be bullied by. Are you threatening me? I'll give you one more warning and then you're going to go out of here. Week after week after week, it's been a constant barrage for a year and a half. You did this wrong. You did that wrong. Look, here's what I believe. I live here. Everybody lives here. Why would you want to see your own home fail? Why? We couldn't even get a law director to apply for the job. We've become so toxic. Why? Because we have tyranny by the minority. We have 8 to 10 to 12 people that are here week after week after week after week. And you can't do anything right. Something's wrong. I'll bet you everything. And $90,000 a year, well, we have council people here that make more than that. We have council people here I know that make more than that. But look, right now with you people in this community, I've been here 74 years. You people have a decision to make. If you think going back to the old way is what you're going to do because that's what they want to do, do it. if you want to keep moving forward, you think that we are trying to do what's right. But to accuse people of stealing money, lunch money, donating money, any little thing up here, $2 to $3, give me a break. There's people that give hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to keep the kitchen going and don't ask for any kind of how I did this or I did that. I'm sorry, but I want the people to see what it's really about. So you have a choice on what you want to do election day. If you want to recall, maybe bring back Lyle Waddell and test the seat. He'll be coming back. Mr. Zimmerman might apply if you don't elect Mr. Waymer. Who knows? Who knows? You want to bring the old gang back? That's up to you. But just remember one thing. We, for a year and a half, have been moving with steady progress. And some people can't stand others to do right and to do well. Never once have I ever had a compliment for anything that anybody, I don't even care if it's my fellow councilmen, have done right. It's always negative, negative. I'd like to thank everybody tonight, and if there's no other comments, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Vote, please.
Spencer?
Yes.
Mr. Rufner?
Yes.
Ms. Stemper?
Yes.
Mr. Federoff?
Yes.
Mr. Bariak?
Yes.